Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Dads Who Mosh podcast. My name is Nate. This is our fourth episode, and I'm grateful that you are here hanging out. It's almost the end of February, starting to heat up a little bit here in Arizona, which I know a lot of people listening to this are in places where it's still cold. So I'm sorry. Um, if you are watching this on YouTube, I shaved like less than a week ago. So here's what happened. Stranger Things is like our family show. The kids love it. Jana and I love it. We've watched through it a whole bunch of times, and obviously, this year, 2025, is the final season coming out. So to get ready for the final season coming out at some point this year, we've been rewatching the season, so we're on like season two right now. We just watch, a little bit after dinner every night, and so we're watching an episode, and of course, Hopper in the show Stranger Things. If you're not familiar with it, I apologize. But Hopper, right? There's this whole, or there was this whole thing about Hopper and his dad bod and all these women that went crazy, for Hopper and his dad bod for a while. But there was a scene. And Hopper had just like stubble on his face. And so it's one of those scenes where, my wife turns to me, she's like, see, look, he just has stubble on his face because she always, like, a lot of times she'll say, like, your beard is too long, right? Or it's like my mustache is too long. I can't kiss you, or I can't, whatever. Your mustache is too long, or your beard gets unruly, or whatever it is. Which it doesn't really, because I can't really grow a good beard. Um, the problem is I have to kind of keep it like a certain length because if I let it go too long, it just looks nasty. Like I'm telling you, there's pictures of me out there where I used to have a neck beard and it was like the most, it's like my neck is the only place where my hair grows like really full and thick. It's disgusting. So I got to say like on top of it, but it's like if I let it go grow too long, it looks disgusting. But if I go too short, I look like a 12-year-old. And so my wife was like, see, look, he's got stubble. I'm like, that's not stubble. Like he's let that grow out for a while. So I was like, okay, I'll shave it down to stubble and I'll show you what this looks like. And I get done. And it's like I have these giant big red lips that are hidden by my beard. And I have this double chin now at 37 that like is hidden by my facial hair. And so of course I do this and my wife is, I don't want to say she's appalled, but it's not the same Nate. I had a video call with my mom this last weekend, and the very first thing she said to me was, "Why did you shave your face?" So that's how you know. That's how you know it looks bad when your mom is like, "Why did you do that?" So it's growing back a little bit, thankfully. So I don't look like a 12-year-old anymore because that's super weird. But yeah, that's the explanation for that. Tonight, I am going to be at the Marquee in Tempe because the Plot in You, their headliner is coming through, and they've got Holding Absence opening for them, Acres opening for them, and of course, Boundaries is opening for them. And I'm so stoked to see Boundaries again. Um, I have been like on Instagram. Boundaries stories have just all been videos that they have shared of their shows on this tour, and it's just like it's gonna be so fun. Like I said a couple of podcasts ago, I wish it was a headliner so I could see more of them and hear more songs. Because as a lot of you guys know, Boundaries was like my number one artist last year, and they still like I keep listening to them like in anticipation for this show, and I'm like listening to these playlists of songs that I think they're going to play and things, and I'm just like I'm so blown away. They're just so good. There's just I don't know what it is. It's like to me they're like the kings of metalcore right now. They're like I mean it's the sound is so perfect, the lyrics are so perfect, their live shows are so great. There's just like this, I don't know, there's like this essence of old, like early 2000s metalcore. It's like, but it's refined, and I don't know, it's just there's so much that's great about them. I'm super stoked to see those guys again tonight. Um, and speaking of, I guess, music, one of the things I was thinking the other day, speaking of boundaries, because, I did a video or a few videos when last year was drawing to a close, just my top albums, and I was talking about boundaries album, um, Death is Little More, that came out last year. And honestly, to me, which I don't know if this is cheating because the album has only been out for like a year, I honestly feel like that album is a perfect album. And I have like different criteria for, what makes a perfect album. But I feel like that album is a perfect album because, I mean, first of all, I don't skip any tracks. Like, I know that's a cheesy way to rate an album, but, and I'm not like super musically inclined. Like, I know what kind of music I like and I can recognize, people that are talented. And so someone might be out there and be like, oh, they may judge a perfect album based on like, riffs or drum beats or, the musical talent or whatever. I don't really do that. It's just like I judge an album, really like based on how it makes me feel. Does it stand the test of time? Can I listen to it over and over and over again without being bored? Can I just like sit and listen to the whole thing, and be like upset that I have to turn the truck off or like, leave the room or, turn the music off? It's a lot of it, I guess, is like emotions based, and a lot of it is based on like, you know, the time of life when I heard that album, what was going on. Music is like, I don't know, it's like wine or food, right? Like, it's you try like this really great burger, and then you go back a few months later and you realize like, oh, this burger's just okay, and you realize it was great just because of the company you were with or whatever it is. Anyways, music can be kind of like that, but it's like the really good music just sticks with you, and at least that's for me, the way I rate perfect albums. And so I'm making a list of albums that I think are perfect albums, and I'm going to kind of just throw these out there every single week. You guys can let me know, like, do you agree? Do you think this album sucks? I don't care. These are albums. Some of them are newer, some of them are older, but they're albums that's just like year after year after year. If I can't find anything else to listen to, I know I can go to these. I know I can put this record on and I can, enjoy it. They're my, my fail safes, I guess. So the first one that I put on this list, which I know maybe we're kicking off with a controversial album right off the bat here, but I'm gonna address that. The first one that I have here is "The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me" by Brand New. I discovered Brand New when I was working my very first job, which was at Subway. I was a sandwich artist, and one of the girls there had the first Brand New album, um, Your Favorite Weapon, and she would always put that on. Like, I just worked there for a summer, and she would always listen to Your Favorite Weapon, and I was just like hooked because at that stage of my life, I was really into like emo and pop punk, and obviously, I think like Your Favorite Weapon was definitely more like pop punk. Deja Entendu was more like an emo sound. And then to me, The Devil and God Are Raging Inside You is just like this perfect blend of, some of the pop punk, emo, and then like alternative. And it just like, it was, to me, it's a perfect album. Now, I know, like I said, it's a little controversial because everything surrounding Jesse, the lead singer with that band. The allegations against him, the things he got caught in, the abuse scandals and things like that. Like that just sucks. I was messaging a buddy of mine the other day, and I was just like, man, it sucks that we have you have to defend listening to Brand New now. And I'm not saying like, oh, he's innocent. Like, seems like he's not. I don't know, but at the same time, it sucks that like he did that, and it sucks that that happened because now like you're kind of like you have to like listen to Brand New underground. I heard something the other day that he would like Jesse Leach was Leach. Is that or am I thinking of I'm thinking of Kill Switch Engage? I don't even know what his name is. Um, but I saw something the other day that the guy Jesse was like playing some secret Brand New shows, like they were just doing like pop up shows. I don't know if that's valid or not. Who knows? I mean, people have come back from that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know, there's growth and forgiveness that can happen, I suppose. It's happened with celebrities, comedians, other bands, other people. So we'll see. We'll see if, Brand New will make a comeback. But Brand New's The Devil and Gods Are Raging Inside Me. is just it's the perfect album. And it may be like this is not even just like a top album in general. There's a really good chance that this is like a top three album for me. Um, I absolutely love this album. The elements in this album are so perfect. There's no skippable songs. you know, Sewing Season to kick it all off is just like it's so fun. They had that on Guitar Hero for a while, and I just like, that was the one I played over and over again. Honestly, Jesus Christ is one of my favorite songs of all time by Brand New. I mean, it's just I don't know. The lyrics and the music in this album just capture I don't know, it captures these emotions so perfectly. Limousine, one of the best songs of all time. The way that it builds, it's just so perfect. My wife and I, when this album first came out, or I guess like shortly after this album came out, we were in Turkey. We were in Istanbul, and we were on this boat, like this kind of like this little cruise ship that was making its way. I'm trying to remember the name of the river, but basically it was like, or the it was going out to the Black Sea, and there's like these inlets that run through the city of Istanbul, and I had my earbuds in, and I was listening to Welcome to Bangkok on this album. We're in Istanbul, but I was listening to the instrumentals, and like as it's nighttime, we're going out on the Black Sea, and like the city of Istanbul just starts to get lit up, and there's like these parties alongside like the water, and there's like lights and music, and I can't hear any of it, but I can see it, and it's just like this surreal moment. Like it was just in this beautiful city listening to this song that was just so good and just seeing all these amazing sights that I knew, I might not ever see again. So this is top three album for sure for me. The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me. When this album turned, it had to have been 10, I guess. So it's not that old. When this album turned 10, yeah, it was because that was 2016. It came out in 2006. In 2016, I know I've told you guys before, I grew up in Missoula, Montana, where there was like absolutely no shows ever came through Missoula. But when this album turned 10, they went on like a 10-year anniversary where they played through it, and they stopped in Missoula, and I wasn't there. Like I was living in Hawaii. My family and I were living in Hawaii at the time. So a friend of mine went, and told me all about it. And this was before like all the scandals and stuff like that. So it's like, Brand New was still like untainted, really. Um, and I missed it. And, then what happened, and who knows if I'll ever see them again. We'll see. Maybe there's a chance. So go out and check out Brand New. You may have to just, not tell anyone. It's like, what are you listening to? Like, nothing. Rap. I don't know. Saliva. Jesse, who was on here a few podcast episodes ago, was laughing because I made that comment, like, who listens to Saliva? And he sent me a picture, and his wife's like XM radio that day, like, put on a Saliva song or something like that. We were laughing. But go out and listen to Brand New's The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me. Just go listen to Brand New in general. Um, I mean, all of their albums. The last album that came out, they had an album that, what was the name of it? Let me see. Um, it was like a secret album. No, it's like Science Fiction is what it was called. That was the last album they put out. It was like a secret one. It's like you could send like in your address or something like that, or like if you were part of their fan club or their mailing list or something. And I think they just like mailed it out secretly. No one knew they were releasing an album, and they just mailed this album out before they put it like, up to purchase, like digitally and stuff like that. And it was okay. There's some bangers on it, but I think I was just I mean, their first three albums are pretty much perfect. Um, and then their fourth one, Daisy, like that had some really good ones on it too. But then the last one, Science Fiction, I don't think I ever really got into that one, but yeah, if you need some music suggestions, go check that one out. Um, but yeah, what else? I was kind of talking with my wife last night about this podcast, and about, I guess just like what I want out of it. She's like, you just like talking about music, is that, and that I don't want that to be the only thing, obviously, like, the scene and hardcore music and I mean like brand new is not hardcore, but it's just like I think this whole music scene that we're a part of here. I love talking about it, and I love finding people to talk about it with. And I love connecting with people on that, that level of music and that deeper emotional level. So I mean that is part of it, and it's like it's a creative outlet to be able to talk about things like that. But I think the other thing that I'm really hoping with this podcast and with, the whole Dads Who Mosh movement, call it a movement. Everybody calls everything a movement. Um, but my whole hope with it is really to create or to like start to build a resource for guys, for dudes, for dads, in particular, but just like guys in general. And we were, my wife and I were talking about this last night, and it was kind of just led into this conversation again of how hard it is for how just really how hard it is for guys in general, but then just like how hard it is for guys to reach out for help and actually find help that feels like help. Like it's really easy to see. I don't know, and it's like when you struggle with anxiety and depression and things like that, like, you may see a video or someone may just like, tell you this is what really worked for me. And I think the hard thing is, and I was actually talking with my therapist about this the other day, like the hard thing is you just can't rationalize it, right? Like if you're a guy out there and you're feeling depressed or you've just got this like crushing anxiety with life, you can't really rationalize it. Like I know a lot of times we want to be like, okay, well, here's the problem. Here's what's missing. So just plug this in and you'll be good, right? Are you feeling sad today? Like, are you feeling depressed? That's fine. The only problem is you just haven't thought about all the good things in your life. So just think about the good things in your life and you'll be fine. And the reality is you're still sad. Like you have thought about the good things in your life, but you're still feeling sad. You're still feeling depressed. And actually, that's making it worse because you're like, I should not feel this way. Like there's no reason for me to be feeling this way. And yet I am. And that just kind of compounds it and makes it worse. And guys just kind of internalize a lot of this stuff. A lot of guys just, they don't want to bother their wives with this. They don't want to bother their coworkers with this. I mean, when's the last time, like, some guy has just called up his buddies and be like, "Can you talk?" Like we make it out as if that's like, that's not very masculine or that's not what guys do. We talked about this the last episode. Guys just like to, watch sports and build things and be stupid and be these apes and it's like there's no emotional anything with men and I think that really sucks because that just does not allow men in our society to express the way that they feel, um, and have that be okay, with how they, and it's like if a guy tries to be too emotional, it gets awkward at best, or like people get angry or people just reject that at worst. And so, I want to, and I don't know exactly what that looks like. I've got some ideas, kind of brewing in my head for the future, for just kind of trying to connect men with, these resources. But, I want it to be a resource for guys. It's called Dads Who Mosh. So obviously there's a lot of extra pressures that come along with being a dad. But I want it to be for all men. And so yeah, and I was talking about this with my wife yesterday. I was actually sitting down with one of the pastors, Kevin from our church here in Arizona as well, and we were talking about this, and he was just talking to me about how he meets with people throughout the week, or people will call him up and be like, hey, can we meet? And he said he was telling me like the majority of these meetings are 37 to 45, or 37 to 50-year-old men who are just like at this point in their life where they're stuck because on the one hand, you've got a whole bunch of men that are like, I thought my life would be different, right? Like, I thought I would be settled into this career. I thought I would be doing this job that I love with coworkers that I love and, coming home to a house that I paid for and, like a family. and, not, stressing out about things, but not stressing out about money or whatever it is. And they're just not there. They haven't landed that job, or they're, like they're working a job that they hate or whatever it is, or they just, they didn't grow up to be a, a firefighter or whatever it was that they thought they were going to be. And so they're just like stuck. They're like, I can't make ends meet. There's all this pressure to have a certain kind of lifestyle, and I just don't make enough money to give my family that lifestyle. Or on the other hand, you've got guys who they do have that, right? They've got money. They've got a career that pays really well, and chances are they have to be at the office all the time, or they have to travel all the time. So now they're not at home with their family. It used to kind of be like, the past generation. I know I've talked about this, but it used to kind of be like the husband was expected to go to work, and that was about it. Like, you're not expected to help with the kids. You're not, anything like that. You're expected to go to work, and that was fine. And that was kind of the norm, but that's just not possible anymore. And then you've got this whole other group of men too that's like, it's like maybe you've got a full-time job, and if you look almost across the board in almost any states, unless you live in, like, I don't know, Alabama or something like that, for the most part, in any state that you live in, if you're making minimum wage, you can't afford to live there. Like, you can't afford to live on one income. So your wife has a job too. And that's pretty normal nowadays to have dual income households. And you guys feel guilty about that because it's like, well, everyone's like, oh, things are expensive. Of course, both spouses have to work. But like, guys are almost made to feel guilty about that because they'll watch a TV show where it's like a rich husband and a wife that stays home, or, whatever it is. And guys feel guilty about that. And then on top of all of that, there's also this pressure to look a certain way. I know there's a lot of emphasis on, women need to, women feel this pressure to look a certain way, to be a certain size, to, get all kinds of stuff done to their face and their body. And there's this, all this pressure. And, but the fact is, I think, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this, like, guys feel that pressure too, because the same Instagram, that women are on, that are seeing all these, supermodels and stuff like that, or whatever it is, guys are on there too. And they're seeing guys that are their age or older, and they're in great shape, and they've got abs, and they've got, but, the fact of the matter is, they've got some job, they landed some job where they don't have to pay for, or that, they don't have to do anything. So they can hire a personal trainer, they can hire a personal chef, they can go to the gym 3 times a day or whatever it is. And we, as, the rest of us guys are like, well, that dad does it. But like, their life is just so different from ours. So there's that pressure for dads too. A lot of this too, was sparked by, yeah, conversations with my wife or conversations with other guys. But a lot of this too was sparked by the fact that last year, right as our family was moving to Arizona, a really good friend of ours who was a dad of 2 young boys, a husband, he took his own life, and it really just it's never like that. It just hasn't lost, or it hasn't left me yet. There's been people in my life, family members, others that, have committed suicide. And of course, it always like hits you, and it's always, it's hard to deal with, and it's devastating. But this friend of mine, for whatever reason, it hasn't left me. Like, it's kind of just like haunting, and it's just like hanging over my soul. And it's just like, I can't shake it. And my wife and I kind of feel the same way. And it's like, why do we feel this way? And I think there's a few reasons. Like, one thing is, like, we always knew that, he had struggled in the past with depression and with mental health issues, and with, self-harm and things like that. And by the time we met him in life, it seemed like, he had, you don't really like ever fully get over like the mental health issues. I think it's always like an ongoing battle. But he just seemed to be in such a better place. He was one of those guys that just seemed to be so full of joy, was so funny, man, and just like had that, this perfect, like, self-deprecating humor. He and I, even though like we met actually when we were all living in Hawaii, and then at one point he moved back home to Pennsylvania. We moved back to Montana, but we always stayed in touch, and he and I would send each other memes and stuff like that. And, he was into the same kind of music. So we'd send each other like videos on Instagram. And, like the last conversation I was having with him, we were joking about like, I mean, we were all like dirt poor living in Hawaii. We were joking about like, there was a group of us that would get together and play Monopoly. And we always had a cheese ball. Like, I don't know why. Like, that was the thing. We were going to play Monopoly and eat a cheese ball. So we just like, someone would bring the cheese ball and we would dip crackers and stuff in it, and that was like what we did for fun because like none of us had any money really. um so we were reminiscing about the cheese ball, and then like 3 days later he was gone. And it was, I think part of it too was it was so devastating because like, and it may sound cliche to say this, but it's like, the other people like in my life that have, gone out that way. It's like you look at your life and you're like, this is really sad, but it's like I do understand. I do get it. They had some issues going on. There was a lot of stuff happening. Um, but this one was, I think, partially was hard because it was like on the surface, it looked like everything was okay. But it's like when you've got somebody that's always struggled with these mental health issues, and then it's like, the pressures, and we kind of talked about that, the pressures on your life of being a dad and providing for your family. And it's just like, I don't, it's almost like in society, like as guys, we start off like in the red, like we start off in the negative, and you're always working to get just like in the black. You're always working to get like above zero. The problem is there's just always these things stacking on top of you that prevent you from feeling like you're above zero and in the black or in the green, like feeling like you're doing really well. It's like you start off at the bottom, and it's like, you as a guy, you got to prove that you're not a scumbag. We talked about this last week. Like society is kind of just like, pointing their finger at a lot of guys and just be like, yeah, you guys suck. You guys are scumbags. You guys are pigs. Like, so you got to prove to me, you got to prove to society that you're not a pig. You're not this scumbag. You're a good guy. But then all of it, like, guess what? You gotta buy a house for your family. You gotta like provide for your family. And if, and chances are, your wife's gonna have to help out with that because things are so freaking expensive nowadays. And if that's the case, yeah, you're less of a guy. Like you're letting your wife down. And by the way, you need to like, have a good enough job to do that. And then you also need to make sure that you're, interacting with your family and taking them on vacation and going taking them to Disneyland and taking them to France, or I don't know, like where rich people go to vacation. You got to make sure you're doing that too because they need the experiences. And you got to make sure like you can't just feed your kids McDonald's. You got to feed them organic food. You got to, what are you doing? Like you're a bad dad if you take your kids through the Taco Bell drive-through. And by the way, you need to figure out work-life balance. So it's like as soon as you're done with work, you can't think about it, you can't talk about it, you can't dwell on it. And you also need to be in good shape, right? You need to be eating well. You need to be counting calories. You need to be getting as much protein as your, or whatever it is. And it's just like, it's never ending. And so it's like a guy may get to a point where he's like, okay, I've got that great job. It's like, okay, cool. Well, you've checked one box, but there's 20 more you still got to get until you're going to be good. You'll have a perfect life and you'll be happy and there will be no worries. And it's just this never ending, impossible, at least if we're grading it based on those things and having all those boxes checked, it's impossible to get there. And so obviously that's like, that's the problem. What's the solution? What's the solution? And I think, a big part of it is, guys just coming together and admitting the struggle, not putting on, just a brave face and be like, there's like a meme out there that's like how you can rate. I'll have to look it up. But it's like how like how horribly a guy's day is going based on what he says, when you ask him how he's doing. And it's like, if he says it is what it is, it's like that man is struggling, kind of a thing. Or if he's just like, yeah, can't complain. It's like, yeah, he can complain, or whatever. I'll have to look it up maybe for next time. But it's true. Like guys just, I think one big thing for guys is we need to somehow find those friends that we can connect with and that we can be very vulnerable with and open with, um, about how we're feeling, not feel like we need to put on a strong face or a brave face, but just be like, like, how are you doing? And if the answer is bad, like, just say bad. I'm not doing good, man. I'm struggling, with this or whatever it is. So um, I think that's one step in the right direction is guys just finding time to come together. And I don't know, man. I don't know what that looks like. I think a lot of guys are like, oh, I need like my boys' night. And, they end up going and hanging out and maybe they just go out to the bars or they like, I don't know, play poker or watch football or whatever. And those things are all good. Like I feel like guys need to be doing that. I'm not saying guys shouldn't do that, but I think there almost needs to be like this time for guys to also talk to each other. And it doesn't need to be like this in-depth conversation, maybe even just be a 5-minute conversation. But I think there's a lot of power in guys coming together and be like, oh, like I also struggle with that. Like that's also an issue for me. Go to a show together and just like talk on the way there and talk on the way back or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I think that's going to be part of it is just guys coming together and talking, about the victories, talking about the defeats, talking about the struggle because we're all going through it, man. I mean, we all feel that to a certain extent because that's what I mean. It's like, I don't know if I could find a guy in my life that checks all of those boxes and it's just like love and life. Um, so I think that's going to be a big part of it. And so that kind of brings us around full circle to like what I want um, for this podcast. Right now we don't have like email up and running. Let me double check that. Actually, I think we may have email up and running. I'll post it um, in the comments here, um, or we'll solidify that for next time. But if anybody's struggling, like reach out on Instagram, reach out on email. We're gonna keep working on building resources just for like other people you can reach out to if it's like, if it's an issue that's like more than just like, hey, like you got to talk to somebody that's a professional about this too. Like you can still talk to me, but like you need to talk to a professional, we'll get some resources out there. Um, but yeah, let's just be there for each other, man. Let's just, let's support each other. Let's celebrate each other's victories. Um, and yeah, just be there for each other because it's not easy out there. And so, I want dads to just be supporting other dads. The dads that are showing up for their families and showing up for their wives and for their kids and doing it every single day. So, um, yeah, I think that's about it for this week. Like I said, holler at me on Instagram. Dads Who Mosh is the Instagram handle. You can also find me out there in the Instagram world. Nate Who Moshes is my Instagram handle there. I do appreciate everybody who has listened so far, everybody who's followed. If you're out there and you find us on Instagram, give us a follow, give us a like. We're gonna have some more content out there. Got some guests coming up here, hopefully in the next few weeks that we'll have on the podcast. And just appreciate you guys checking in. Holler at me if you need anything. And we'll check in with you guys next week.